I think Bayern need some enfant terrible now in the team. I think you need from one Konrad Laimer, from one Joshua Kimmich, from one Goretzka, loyal, hard-working football players, you need some flair. You need some colors in there to take them to the next step. Bayern will be favorites to win the Bundesliga next season, but that's not their standard. The standard is to be the best team in the world.
Hi and welcome to the Fussball channel. I'm your host Marcus Fjørtoft, and as always joined by co-host Jan Fjørtoft. And as we find ourselves, Dad, in the summer months and with the Club World Cup going on, there is obviously the football on the field, and Bayern with a strong performance, I'd say, Dad, against Boca Juniors in a pretty hostile atmosphere. The South American team certainly can take a lot of credit for the brilliant atmosphere we've seen at a fair few of these Club World Cup games. But there is also obviously the focus on what happens off the field, Dad, with this infamous list. And well, I see someone like Michael Olise and the type of profile they get through him, and the rising star that he has become now. It's interesting that to see the different profiles of the wingers they're now looking at, and it looks like that list is just expanding day by day.
Well, the Bayern list is quite interesting because, first of all, they are very reliable. There are sources in Germany who have information that they give to us. I mean, our friend Christian Falk, of course, with Tobi Alschäfer, auch Plettenberg, that we've been guest, and Berger, a lot of people we could mention, which make it more interesting to follow German football, because in England, they kind of keep it more undercover, whatever they do. And yes, you were saying that there is frantic activity. And a quick explainer is that Max Eberl, the Olise deal and all that profile, that is great. And the good thing about that deal is that Olise would not have been on the A list for Bayern at that time. That is a good player they got in. They got Tar in now on a free. But there is an expectation now of this spectacular transfer. The spectacular transfer will, of course, be Florian Wirtz. But he has gone to Liverpool. They hope to extend the contract of Leroy Sané. He goes to Galatasaray and so on. So they are building up the expectation now in the German media in and around that Eberl, he has to deliver a big signing. How do you define a big signing? Well, that is also interesting because, and Olise at that time, people would say, yeah, he's a good, talented player, and it turned into having a fantastic season, and he keeps playing like that also in the Club World Cup. So Max Eberl went over to the first game and he said, yeah, I'm going to be on German time. I'm going to frequently communicate with the different parties. But now he's traveled back again. People say go back to meet the board to get some mandates. I mean, you can do that over telephone. You can do that over Teams. You can do that over whatever. But he's gone back. So, and it puts always pressure on a head of sport at Bayern, because Bayern is, yes, it's about getting good players in to define or to fill the defined role that they need. But Bayern is also about the spectacular thing. It's also about the ribbon, about the Robin of the world. But we should remember, Marcus, and we talked about that before, that at the time they got them, they were not A-list. They were great, great players. The Robin, a bit out of the Real Madrid, a lot of injuries, and then they turned that into robbery, the two wingers there. So it's very interesting time to be Bayern fans at the moment, because there are so many people on that famous list that they love to use the German pundits and experts.
I find it so interesting looking at the transfer strategy, and we've discussed this before, Dad, in terms of what Bayern are, in terms of what they are as a football institution, and one of the strongest football brands in the world, and the winning that is connected to that brand, right? And as such, you want to, and you have to almost declare interest in the biggest players. For me, it's twofold. One, Bayern put themselves in a difficult position when they say they want the Nico Williams, they say they want the Rafael Leão, Luis Díaz, some of the best wingers in the world. The problem with that is obviously the narrative, which we've discussed, is Nico Williams, they can get all depending if Barcelona can't register him. Because Nico Williams wants Barcelona. So they're saying, okay, hopefully, well, if he doesn't get registered. Rafael Leão, well, maybe we'll see, but still one of the most attractive wingers in the world. You have someone like Gittens, who's Chelsea's wanted. Luis Díaz, it will take a lot for him to leave. Barcola from PSG takes a lot for him to leave. The problem, obviously, is declaring interest and such when, by and large, they seem to be very hard prospects to get. So I am curious about that strategy, and I'm wondering whether it be served better for Bayern if, for example, the Olise example being, he is one now, established himself now, Bundesliga player of the season, now established himself as one of the best wingers in the world. Wasn't that when he brought him in? You said that we're there with Robin as well, bringing him in. Yes, he'd been at Chelsea, Real Madrid, but nonetheless, is it just better for them to target someone? Maybe it is even someone like Bino Gittens, who isn't still a big star, but that they can make one in 1 or 2 years. I just am very interested in the positions they put themselves in when they declare such an interest in the very best players that are so hard to get.
Well, I think that you have to understand the culture of German media. You have to understand the culture of Bayern. You have to understand the management, the main characters in the Bayern, more or less, environment. Because you're right. I mean, Liverpool, slowly doing their business. I mean, now...
Very slowly, quietly.
Slowly, 23rd of June, they have 3 players in, great players, people going out. No, nobody says anything. That's why I start by saying it's easier to work as we do in Germany because you know more. Mm-hmm. But you make a very valid point, because I'm not sure that they should change the tactic and go after the best, because that is a part of the proudness that is of Bayern. They played Inter. They couldn't have knocked out Inter in the Champions League. They could have gone all the way to the final. That's Bayern. They won the league. They lost the cup, but still they won the league, which was very important for them. But I think that it's a bit, the strategy of Bayern is based a bit on yesterday, because there was a time. And I listened to Christian Falk saying something of the same, and I 100% agree with him, because there was a time that Bayern just had a plan A. I don't think Bayern have a plan, just a plan A. I think that so-called list is more also a shadow list. The problem with a shadow list, when you have a lot of players, and you mentioned some of them, is that you won't know, are you first on the list, or are you fifth on the list? Are you on a shadow list? Are you on a list when this and that not happening or happening? That is a big problem when you're having that. So in terms of Gittens, Marcus, I mean, that is not a young talent that they can take to Bayern and develop, because this young talent will cost 60, 70, 80 million euros, you know? You go to PSG and you say, yeah, we want one of your players. Yeah, but he won the Champions League. Why should he go to the... good point. Mm-hmm. And then Williams, as you were saying, well, he's desperate to play for Barcelona. Is that a good start, to spend all your money on someone who rather plays somewhere else? Then you have the other aspect to it, Leão. I mean, I saw Leão. I was down there working for Servus TV. They play AC Milan against Salzburg. He was unbelievable. I think it was first time I saw him live, if I'm not wrong. I mean, wow, was I impressed by him. Then we hear stories, yeah, but he's different. He is difficult. He have this and that. Well, watch out. That is not good for the Bayern dressing room. But I would say totally opposite. I think Bayern need some enfant terrible now in the team. I think you need from one Konrad Laimer, from one Joshua Kimmich, from one Goretzka, loyal, hard-working football players. You need some flair. You need some colors in there to take them to the next step. Bayern will be favorites to win the Bundesliga next season, but that's not their standard. The standard is to be the best team in the world. And that is hard for them, because you do compete about the players with state-sponsored football clubs, which is hard. So you have to find the mixtures in there. Let's take another one. I mean, as we speak here, Marcus, there's not a lot of football going around except the domestic league here in Norway that I follow. We have the Club World Cup, but also the Under-21 European Championship. Yeah, we follow that. The Germans are doing well. Very dramatic game against Italy, where Italy equalized just before the end, where they're ending up winning Germany. There you have a striker. He's 198. Woltemade, the Stuttgart striker. He's a big lad. He scores goals. He makes assists. He's 23. I think Bayern should get him straight away. Because, yes, you have Kane. Yes, you have this. Yes, you have that. But you have to make a convinced project to present to Woltemade to say, well, you're going to be our new top striker. Then I do understand that he will think, well, if I'm on the bench for Bayern for 1 year and the World Cup is coming up, I have ambitions in terms of that. Well, then find a concept that you can loan yourself back to Stuttgart for 1 year. I think that is a perfect example of a player that Bayern should go for. Because Woltemade, he won't be taken by Arsenal or Liverpool or Chelsea right now because he doesn't have that high profile yet. But Bayern should secure him because Bayern should secure the best talents in Germany. And Woltemade, you can see with his attributes, with his skill, that he is something different. And I think that is a player they should get straight away. And also then add that with people with flair like Leão. I don't think Díaz will make them better. I see Díaz in Liverpool. I see him live all the time. He's a good player. He's a busy player. He's a bit like Suarez. He puts people under pressure. But I don't think he will do Bayern better. And why do I say that? Because I don't think that is a big mathematic strength when you compare with a Serge Gnabry or a Kingsley Coman. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how you're going to compare that with. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have to go for players who have that something extra that could, if rightly developed, they could go into the position to make this team better.
It's also worth remembering that even if it is a big profile, doesn't necessarily become the right fit. We remember Sadio Mane and what the
Rodriguez, when they sold him in some years ago as the next god at Bayern, but there was no one who took the time to mention. I did, Marcus, as the great pundit I am, but I said to him, but listen, the guy you just got, if I'm not wrong, he just came from a Champions League final with Real Madrid and he wasn't even in the squad. Mm-hmm. He wasn't even in the squad. So yes, I'm with you. The high profile things doesn't always fit the bill, and Olise is a great example of the positive thing, and Sadio Mane, the good example of not working out.
I mean, someone like Woltemade, 5 goals, 3 assists, I believe, in the under-21s tournament. He is an anomaly in terms of what you expect from a man of this size. He's extremely technical. He can provide goals as well as score goals. He's had an incredible last 2 to 3 years of development as well, and in line in sort of with the players that Bayern have brought in, young German players, Ulbrich, Bischoff from Hoffenheim, who, by the way, hasn't registered a minute in the Club World Cup yet, and sacrificed the under-21s for this, but would very much be in line with that sort of profile. And that's what Ebel, I'm sure, and Freund and etc. are thinking of in terms of the profile of players. They wanted Wirtz, not only because he was one of the best players in the world, but also young and German. So it'd be interesting to see what type of profile they are after. If they have a chance of a big profile player, yes, but it needs to be a right fit. And you say, Díaz, you're not convinced? And obviously there are, and this is part of the narrative too, but there are internal discussions about Leão as well. What we know is Ebel is back in Germany and trying to work through some...
And he should put himself, Marcus, sorry to interrupt you, he should put himself in the car straight away, go to Stuttgart, do whatever you get to get this player.
Obviously not a winger, right? But we have discussed about needing another supplement to Kane.
Exactly, and that keep on working. The transfer window is short but long, so you should just make sure that when players of that caliber, of that profile, as you were saying, young, German, successful, and there is things to develop, get him straight away. That's the way. I understand that is hard, but I think that if we buy the narrative that our good colleagues and friends doing, and they are very informed by all this kind of thing. We don't have that, but we kind of have to follow that from outside to try to do a best possible analysis of what they are telling us, what the Bayern bosses that love to do interviews tell us, and that's what we got based on. And then it's the same in Liverpool, Marcus. Florian Wirtz, if a player like Florian Wirtz have just the slightest inch of interest of going to your club, meaning Liverpool, then you just have to use all the money you can in the world, because that kind of player is not available all the time. Very seldom. We had the Bellingham race, yes, and he ended up at Real Madrid. We had the Erling Haaland race, and he ended up at Manchester City. To be fair to Sancho, he was one of those players back in the days. He hasn't 100% succeeded. But now you have Florian Wirtz, because the Musiala of this world, they are not available. Mbappe, he was destined to go to Real Madrid, so he was not available. So Liverpool has done a fantastic job using a couple of transfer windows to dry up a bit. And by the way, winning the Premier League without any new players. But they have done it again. They got Alisson for a lot of money. They got Van Dijk for a lot of money. Now they're getting Florian Wirtz for a lot of money. And yes, I know they got Nunez for a lot of money as well. So I know that. But you will win some and you will lose some. And that's why I'm saying you have to start with your profile of the potential players. And Woltemade is Woltemade for Bayern.
Nice. We haven't really spoken since Wirtz was officially announced as a Liverpool player, and we have a friend of the podcast and Leverkusen insider expert, Pippo Arens. He shared a few words with us about the transfer.
Hello, Marcus. From black-red into red, Florian Wirtz will take Anfield by storm. I'm pretty sure that the Liverpool fans will fall in love with Florian very, very quick, because he is not only a fantastic offensive player with technical skills, but he is the role model of a team player. Before his ankle injury in March, he was the Bundesliga player who had won most of the duels. After this injury, he was still runner-up in this category with 383 duels won. So his play, the way of play, with his physical strengths he has, will definitely fit for me into the Premier League. And the Premier League is for him the best league in the world. So he wants to compete with the best players in the world. He could have chosen the more easier way to stay in the Bundesliga, a competition he knows for over 5 years now. But he wants to be at the best level. This is what he always said. He once said to Peter Bosch when he was 16 years old, I want to be the best player in the world. And between Liverpool and Leverkusen has always been a good relationship. At the end, I think it's a result which both clubs can be proud of. Leverkusen has a record deal done, and Liverpool has become a very, very great football player, which will be much admired, not only at Anfield Road.
And that was Pippo Arens. And for us, Dad, not so much surprising to hear what sort of team player Florian Wirtz is as well, but for maybe the outsider, and especially for those in the Premier League and whatnot, who will look at this player with such flair, he is an extremely hard worker. He's a big team player, extremely humble, a good support system around him. But I want to ask you about Watzke's remarks, who said that he would have preferred Wirtz to stay in Germany and had no problem if he went to Bayern Munich. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, Watzke is not only a Dortmund boss, he's also a boss for the Bundesliga, and he is a high-profile leader in German football. So I do understand that for the product, it's much better that Florian Wirtz, of course, stay in Germany. They're talking about TV rights, talking about abroad TV rights, the popularity of it. So that I understand, 100% I understand that. Having said that, I think that if we talk about the reaction for the leaders, I think Simon Rolfes, the head of sport at Leverkusen, the way they kind of congratulating Florian Wirtz for the new deal. But then this morning I read Caro, the CEO of the whole club. I love him. He had a great story about people calling him and saying congratulate him for the deal, and he said, "What do you mean congratulate? We wanted to keep the player." So of course they did, but you do understand now that Leverkusen is a bit of a of a change. New manager in Erik ten Hag, new manager in Erik ten Hag. Xhaka is linked to AC Milan. Florian Wirtz has already gone. So has Jonathan Tah, and so on and so on. But for German football markets, if we were only the great thing for you and me, we have two lovers. We have the German Bundesliga and we have the English Premier League. So the product German Bundesliga is a bit reduced by Florian Wirtz leaving the Bundesliga. So I 100% understand that. Watzke, who now says he's going to stay on as a leader, will try to stay on. People tend to miss themselves, which is good, but Watzke is also a high profile and very knowledgeable man of German football. So I find that as a good news as long as he's staying. And we still see the old guard, Uli Hoeneß, this weekend out in an interview talking about everything and nothing. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge talking about everything and nothing. So for Max Eberl and Christoph Freund, who is doing the recruitment of Bayern, is not the easiest task in the world.
At this rate, when they come out in the media so much, I'm like, okay, we might as well try as well, huh? We might as well just try and get a few comments from them while we're at it. I think that could be the next.
That would be a dream guest to get Uli Hoeneß on. Oh yeah. Wow. Then that we would have loved. But there's a lot of media houses also in Germany. Ask Christian Falk, the Bayern insider, to love to have him on board. But it's always entertaining, and we will end where we started, Marcus, because in German football you can discuss these kind of things because things get out through the media landscape. In England is a bit tighter the information. And
in other news, and on the topic of Dortmund, there are reports, just think from Sportbild, that Nico Kovac will be extending his contract by a further year with Dortmund. As we know, he got brought in at the tail end of last season, or the last half of last season, and his contract expires next summer. Made quite the impression, though, that taking them from 11th, qualifying them to the Champions League, registered their first win in the Club World Cup against Maladoi Sundowns, 4-3. Still a bit of a Dortmund performance. I say a performance I don't know if Kovac would be convinced by, but nonetheless, seems like talks will take their hold, so to speak, after the Club World Cup, and it seems like it is a deal that would suit both parties.
Well, yes, and we are in an industry of rewards, and he came on. He took them to the Champions League. I think that is right that he should be rewarded. They have to give him that confidence going into a season, because we know after 2-3 games lost in the new Bundesliga season, people will say, yeah, but the contract is up in the summer and so on. So I like that. I like the new Dortmund team with another Bellingham. Both Bellingham brothers scoring. Bellingham brothers. It's like Bellamy brothers. The Bellingham brothers. Why didn't I put that on the tweet? I was writing
Blues Brothers. I don't know.
Yeah, Blues Brothers, but Bellamy brothers. They were a great football group, Marcus. Pop duo. You wouldn't know. But so fantastic, and I think he will give them a bit steel because he is the brother of his brother. So I like that, and you can see some of the players now. Also will work hard for a long-term contract, being a part of the Kovac project. I think it's right for them to have them. It's going to be interesting, although, Marcus, we have been we have been supportive of the Club World Cup, and sometimes you can't talk it down when you see the interest in America. I see that Brazil won the next Club World Cup. Infantino has also flirted with the idea to keep it in the USA for next time as well, saying we want to be the sport number one in USA. But I like the idea of Dortmund rewarding Nico Kovac, and we'll see, Marcus. I think that the big debate, although we've been, like I said, been positive, the big debate is how will this make them start the season, because the pre-season will be shorter for them. They are traveling. Some teams bringing their family and all that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they will start the season. If Liverpool, the likes of Liverpool, will sit somewhere now and smoke a cigar and thinking that we can only concentrate on the first game of the Premier League season, and Manchester City, Chelsea, and are on the road. So it's going to be interesting. And also Arsenal could be an advantage for them. But as we both have Dortmund shirts in and around us, I think that we will like to see a strong Dortmund as long as they're behind Eintracht Frankfurt.
Exactly, in which they were last season as well. that concludes our little recap. We will be updating ourselves and you the audience, throughout this summer. But for now, Dad, auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.